Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gretchen and today I am here with my list of my favorite reads from 2025. Today is December 31st and I officially finished my final read of the year yesterday, which meant that I was finally able to sit down and come up with my list of favorites. I always like to make sure that I finish everything because I want all of the books to have an equal chance of making it onto that list, and also I don't have any plans for today, and the weather here in Pittsburgh is very snowy, and anytime the weather is cozy like this, I would love nothing more than to curl up with a good book. But the books that I want to read, because I am a mood reader, I don't think I would be able to finish in a day, and I don't like to carry books over into the new year. So I am going to resist that urge. Maybe I will binge a TV show or something, but there will be no reading today, and then I'll be able to start with a clean slate tomorrow, and I already have the book that I want to kick off the year with on my nightstand and ready to go, so I'm looking forward to that. But we're here to talk about my favorite reads of 2025, and I will be honest, when I sat down to come up with this list, I was sort of nervous, and I was nervous because if you followed my channel, you'll know that I've mentioned several times this year that this has not been my best reading year. I have really struggled to find a lot of books that have stood out to me. I was also very underwhelmed by a lot of the book prize long list this year, and I just wasn't really having the best luck of finding books that blew me away. So I was nervous when I sat down this morning that I wasn't going to have 12 books that I wanted to highlight and include on this list. But in retrospect, looking back on the books that I did read, I was really pleased that I had more than enough books to include that I thought I would want to talk about. And also, I had to be cutthroat with some of them, which wasn't something I was expecting. So even though this reading year certainly hasn't been as bountiful as others have, I still would say that this was a decent reading year looking back. So that is always a good thing. So I did put my list together, and there are 12 books that I'm going to be talking about today, and a lot of these books I've already talked about in great detail on my channel. So this is not going to be a video where I really go into a lot of detail with the books. I just really want to talk high level about what those books are, why I loved them, and there might be more talk about some books than others, but just know that this is not going to be a full-length review of each of the books. So let's go ahead and get into it, starting with my number 12. Coming in at number 12, we have a book called Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. This is a book that I did not expect in a million years to make my best books of the year list. I found this on the new release shelf at my library. I was intrigued by the cover because I travel for work and I am on airplanes all the time, and it was just such a weird and strange premise. I had to figure out where the author was going with this, and I am so glad that I picked it up. For those of you that don't know, in general terms, this is a book about a woman who is sexually attracted to planes. It stems from a moment of trauma that she experienced when she was a young girl, and it's something that has just stayed with her throughout the rest of her life. She frequently tries to find ways that she can come up with money to take trips because she is ultimately looking for connections with certain planes for how they make her feel. And that is the surface level of the book. That's the general plot. But this book is so much more than that. This book digs into topics of grief and the effects of self-loathing and coming to terms with who you are as a person and learning about who you are as a person, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and finding connection in a world where it almost seems impossible to do so. And the author did this book with humor, and it was also very sad at times, but it was also relatable at times, and I just loved every minute of it. This book was highly entertaining, and if you are willing to take a chance on a very weird and strange book, give this one a go. I absolutely loved it. Coming in at number 11, I have a book called A Family Matter by Claire Lynch. This is a book that I picked up because it has been longlisted for the Aspen Words Literary Prize. I knew nothing about it going in, and I absolutely fell in love with the characters in this book. This is a family saga, and it goes through multiple generations. We have family in the present day looking back at family dynamics of the past, and I don't want to get too much into it because I will be talking about this book in more depth whenever I do my videos about the Aspen Words Literary Prize, because I will be reviewing all of those books on there. But this was unexpected. I really connected with this book, and I will remember these characters and this story for a very long time. And I am excited to talk more about this prize as I get through those videos, because I have really come across a lot of great books from it so far. So looking forward to sharing that with you. Coming in at number 10 is a book that I did talk about on my channel already. It is a book called A Shining by Jan Fosse. This is translated from the Norwegian by Damien Searles. And this is a book that is just a little sliver of a novella. It is not very long at all. You could sit down and you can read it in one sitting. And basically the story is just that a man is driving in the winter. He pulls up against a forest, and he gets out of his car in this snowstorm, and he eventually starts to make his way into the forest, and he is following this light that he sees. And I won't go into more detail about that because I think that the book is an experience, and it was just a book that I found so moving, and I didn't know where it was going. I was so confused throughout the entire book. Well, I shouldn't say the entire book. I was so confused probably maybe a quarter of the way, halfway through, and then once I decided that I was just going to let go of wondering what was happening and just enjoy the experience, I really started to just fall in love with it. And Jan Fosse's writing, I also read another book by him this past year called Elicit the Fire, and it was the same kind of vibe, and I just absolutely love his writing. It's moody, it's atmospheric, and it's just one of those things where you don't know what is happening, but you completely understand. And it was just an amazing experience, and I'm really looking forward to picking up more from this author in 2026. Coming in at number 9, I have The Girls by John Bowen. This is a book that I've read within the last few months, and it was a delightful surprise. I stumbled across this book at my local library and noticed that it was McNally Editions, and I have had tremendous luck with their books. They publish books that have been out of circulation for a long time, and they're breathing new life into them. And this specific book was written in the 80s. It is set in the Cotswolds in the UK, and it is following a lesbian couple that unexpectedly one of them gets pregnant, and the man that is the father comes kind of sniffing around, and they're worried that it's going to upend their life, and it leads to some tragic circumstances. And I just thought that the story was delightful. The characterization was perfect. The plot was amazing, and it was darkly comedic, and it just had so many elements that I enjoy in a novel, and I thought it was perfect, and I loved every single minute of my time I spent with that book. Coming in at number 8, I have a book called Killing Stella by Marlon Haushofer. This is translated from the German by Sean Whiteside. This is another book that I think is a hidden gem. I haven't heard many people talking about it, but I think about this book all of the time, and it was such a mood and a vibe. This book follows our main character. She is reflecting on the death of her friend's daughter that she took in. They brought this girl, her name was Stella, into her home. This woman lives there with her husband and her 2 children. And when Stella came into their house, it kind of changed the dynamic of how everything worked in the family. There started to be some relationship happening between Stella and her husband, and ultimately the book initially kicks off with us finding out that Stella has died, and throughout the duration we learn what led up to that, and it's just a great book that just discusses how complicit we are sometimes in things that happen, and by being quiet and not saying anything can have detrimental effects. And I just loved it. It was such an interesting novel, and it has really made me excited about reading more from this author. I believe her most popular book was called The Wall, which I'm hoping to get to in 2026. But yeah, if you have a little bit of time, this is a very short novel, and if you really like good just atmospheric and moody and books that will make you feel unsettled, this is going to be a great option for you. Coming in at number 7, I have Small Boat by Vincent Delacroix. This is translated from the French by Helen Stevenson. This book was also shortlisted for this year's International Booker Prize. To me, I can sum this book up by simply saying that it's haunting. I have thought about this book so many times, and I think why it has stuck with me is because it is based on a true story. It follows the tragedy of a group of refugees that are trying to flee France and get to the UK. They are on a small little boat in the middle of the English Channel when they stumble upon some really harsh weather, and they end up all drowning. And it's a terrible story, but the main focus of the book is on that event, but also our main character, who is the French Coast Guard employee that was in communication with the people that were on the boat, and the decisions that she made that ultimately led to their demise. And it's a story that will make you question your ethics. It's a story that makes you contemplate and consider what you would do in that situation. And it's a book that just really made me question everything. And I will never forget my reading experience. There were so many times that I was holding my breath while I was reading it. I cried. It was such an emotional gut punch, and it's a book that, yeah, I don't think I will ever forget this reading experience and learning about that story. And unfortunately, because it was based on a true event, that just puts even more weight on the story and makes it even more impactful. If you think that you can emotionally handle a book like this, I do think it is definitely worth a read. Coming in at number 6, I have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This is a book that I finally got to in 2025. It had been on my TBR for years, and I'm so glad that I did. I thought that this book was beautifully written. It's a book that is set up kind of in a weird structure. It is basically a grouping of short stories, and each of them follow a Black British female character, and we learn about their lives and how they are ultimately interconnected with each other. And it's just a beautiful story, and we learn so much about all of these different walks of life and how they differ and how they're the same. And it was beautifully written, and I fell in love with these characters. They felt so real, and I am so glad that I finally got to this one this year. I need to really start focusing on those books that I say that I'm going to get to, and make a case for reading them. I often get sucked into reading the books that are new and shiny, but having read a book as wonderful as Girl, Woman, Other, it's that great reminder to not forget about those books that have been on your shelves for a while. Coming in at number 5, I have There Are Rivers in the Sky by Elif Shafak. I was so excited to finally get to one of her books this year. I have been meaning to for ages and never found the time. And then this one fell into my lap, and I knew that I had to give it a go. I'm so glad I chose this one because I loved it so much, and it's really making me want to get to her backlist. This book also does something that I love in literature, where it takes multiple different characters that are living in different timelines and it weaves their stories together. And I thought that she did a masterful job of this. The basic premise of this story is we start at the very beginning learning about the ancient epic poem, the Epic of Gilgamesh. So we learn a little bit of that and its origins in the first chapter, and then from there we move on to the characters within the novel. And these characters are somehow all interconnected by this single drop of water. We start the book in 19th century London with a young orphan named Arthur. We also follow a young girl in 2014. She is a Yazidi, and she and her family are fleeing from ISIS. And then modern day London, we have a character who is a hydrologist, and her profession is that she studies water. And we learn all about them and how their lives converge. And it is such a great story. I was intrigued the entire time, and her writing was gorgeous and lush. And yeah, I can't wait to pick up more from this author in the future. So that's my number 5. Coming in at number 4, I have Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This is a book I have been meaning to get to for ages, and I was so glad that 2025 was finally the year to do it. It's even more exciting because when I read it very early on, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, it was my first 5-star read of the year. And I'm so glad that this was the year because I did not know that they were doing a film adaptation of it. So I always like to read the book before I watch the movie. I haven't had a chance to watch the movie yet, but it is on my list of things to do, and it looks beautiful. I've heard lovely things about it, but the book, oh my gosh, it was fantastic. For those of you that don't know, this book follows the perspective of Agnes, who is Shakespeare's wife, as she deals and her family deals with the loss of their son named Hamnet. And it was just it's just such a beautiful story. And if you have never read anything by Maggie O'Farrell, I can't eloquently explain what it is about her writing, except to say that there is something magical about it. The way that she writes, it is lush and it is vivid, and she has such a distinct author's voice in my opinion, and I just loved every minute of it. And if memory serves me correctly, and I could be totally wrong about this, I think she might have a new book coming out in 2026, but I might be confusing her with Ann Patchett. But regardless, even if she doesn't have one coming out in 2026, she has a pretty healthy backlist of books that I need to get to. So I am looking forward to reading more from this author because yeah, she's just amazing. And if you haven't read this one, if you were like me and it's been sitting on your TBR for a long time, let this be your sign to give this a chance. I do not think it's possible for you to be disappointed in this book. Coming in at number 3, I have The Seas by Samantha Hunt. Before I say anything about the book, I will say that I did struggle. This was probably the hardest part of coming up with this list, was going back between my number 3 and my number 2. They could be interchangeable depending on the day of the week or what my mood is. So it doesn't mean that I love one more than the other. It's just I had to put one at number 3 and one at number 2. And this is just how I felt today. The Seas, oh my gosh, this book is so special to me. I read this book on a whim. I do a series where I highlight independent presses and I read 3 books from them, and I needed an extra book for Tin House. And this was a book that I found at a book sale or a library sale. I didn't know anything about it, but I knew I had to read it for the project, and I am so glad I took a chance on it because I love this book so much. This book is a mood, it's a vibe. It is a sad, depressing, miserable book where nothing happy happens, but I just loved the characters so much. They were so relatable. I was invested in their lives, and I just loved it. This is a book about grief and shared trauma and loving people that aren't capable of loving you back, and it was just wonderful. I loved every miserable minute of it, and if you are somebody that likes books that are really character driven, not a whole lot of plot, and you don't mind a little bit of whimsy and quirkiness to it. And I say that because part of the premise of this book is that we have a girl, she I think is 19, she lost her father at a very young age, but she holds on to the hope that her father is still alive, because when he went missing and was declared dead, it was because he walked into the sea and he never came back. But as a girl, he always told her that she was a mermaid. So she's living on to this false hope that her father might still be there. It's a way for her to process her grief, and so it does have a little bit of quirkiness to it. She is also in current day in love with a war veteran, and he has his own traumas and his own tragedies that he is trying to work through. There's a dynamic between the two of them. They both care about each other, but they can't love each other in the way that they need to, and it's just a beautiful story. But like I said, it's depressing, but I loved every minute of it, and if that sounds at all interesting to you, go ahead and give this a shot to see if you like it. Coming in at number 2, we have Endling by Maria Reva. This probably comes as no surprise to anybody that this book made it onto my best of list. What's probably shocking to you, though, if you follow my channel, is that it's not my number 1, but I talked about this book so many times on my channel this year because I loved it. This book, in my opinion, was robbed of the Booker Prize. I feel like it was the best book on the long list, and I will die on that mountain. I thought it was innovative. I thought it was unique. I thought it was doing something different, and it is a book that I will remember. There is nothing about this book that is forgettable in my opinion, and that is what I am looking for when I think of the Booker Prize. I want to be shocked by a book. I want to have my jaw drop a little when I'm reading a book that is nominated or longlisted for a prestigious literary prize, and this book absolutely did that for me. And I also love how much of herself as an author that she incorporated into this book, and I just think it's really special. It's weird, it's quirky. I felt that it was well written, and it was a book that had me entertained from start to finish, and every turn of the page was exciting for me. I enjoyed the entire experience of this book. All right, we have made it to the end, and my favorite read of 2025 is literally the one that I finished yesterday, and that is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This is your sign if you have been wanting to read this book. If it's on your TBR, if it's one you're meaning to get to, just do it. Don't hesitate to pick it up. Don't be scared. I know that this is probably a book that a lot of people are intimidated by. They're probably intimidated of the length. It is a long book. It's a big commitment. Don't let that worry you. This book reads very quickly. A lot of people are probably hesitant to pick it up because it's considered a Western and they don't think that they're going to like Westerns. Do not let that get in your way. This book, it does not feel, even though it is a Western technically, it doesn't read like your stereotypical Western would read. There is so much humanity and heart in this book. It is definitely worth it. And I think another thing that really intimidates people about picking this book up is the hype that it gets. There are so many times when books are so beloved by the community and you're worried that it is just hype and everybody is getting on the bandwagon for the book and it's not going to live up to what people are saying. I'm not guaranteeing that that won't happen to you, but this is an instance where the hype is real. This book is so good. This is storytelling at its finest. It is an epic journey. For those of you that aren't familiar with the premise of it, it follows a group of men that are doing a cattle drive from very southern Texas the whole way up to Montana in the 1800s, and it follows not only their group, but there are other characters that are coming from different parts of the country, and there's other stories and plot lines going on, so it's very much an epic, and the characters are fantastic. You will fall in love with not only the human characters, there are some animal characters in here as well that you're gonna fall in love with too, and it's just it was a pleasure to read the book. Now, I will say that there is one thing that probably gave me a slight advantage when reading this book, and that is that I watched the miniseries years and years and years ago. The beginning of the book, it does take a couple hundred pages to really get into the swing of things. However, the first couple hundred pages are not boring or anything. It is just taking a little bit of build up. We're meeting a lot of the characters. We're getting a lot of their backstories before things really start to take off. But the beginning was still very enjoyable. But it really takes off at about that 200 page mark for me, at least. Now, I did watch the miniseries, as I mentioned, but that was 30+ years ago. I have extremely fond memories of watching that miniseries. I watched it with my dad. Lonesome Dove was his favorite book, and I remember very specific scenes of that miniseries, and I was really looking forward to getting to read those scenes throughout the book, and I did know a lot of what was coming along the way, so I had that anticipation to get to those parts. But I think that even if you went into this blind, the story is so compelling that it is going to push you along. So yeah, I won't say anything else about the book, just that I think if you haven't read it and it's one that you're interested in, or if you've ever considered it, do yourself a favor and make this book part of your 2026 reading list, and I don't think that you're going to regret it. I think that you're actually gonna love it. I don't think I have ever known a book to be more universally loved than Lonesome Dove, and I think it's just because it's a solid story and there is something for everyone in a book like this. So yeah, so that's it. Those are my top reads of 2025. Thank you so much for being here and going on this journey with me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Every single time that you watch a video or like or comment or subscribe, it helps support my channel and keeps it going, and I am just so appreciative of all of my community that I have built here, and I wish all of you a happy, healthy, and safe new year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the books bring us in 2026. And until we read again, bye!